5 Network. This is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris coming to you on this Wednesday. A good show on tap for you, and I'll invite you to join us as always, either on the Plus, you're watching on TV right now, News Channel 5 Plus. Certainly hope you have power right now. I know several homes do not still in the Middle Tennessee area. And we're also, as always, streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com. You go to the News Channel 5 page on Facebook, and you can message us any questions or comments. Good morning to all of you out there on Facebook. Good morning to you on the Plus. This morning we're going to talk about some of the legal issues with regard to COVID-19. The question as to whether or not perhaps you or a loved one gets sick from the virus, and depending on the circumstances, do you have some type of legal action, perhaps some type of malpractice, or perhaps some issue that happened maybe within an assisted living facility or a nursing home. And we've certainly seen that there likely will be lawsuits filed at several of these facilities where there have been questions about whether or not the proper steps were taken. And we know about what's happened at that facility in Gallatin, those coming along. And to talk about this, to take your questions and give us an overview of some of the legal issues with regard to COVID-19, of course, is our regular guest, comes on every month, Clint Kelly, malpractice attorney. Good morning to you, sir. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you just fine, Nick.
Excellent. So you were telling me you're at your office right now there in Hendersonville, but you're one of the many right now who still, you do not have power from these storms this weekend.
Well, no, actually, Nick, I'm at the house.
Oh, you're at the house. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's the other way around. But no, I have no power here. Fortunately, I've got an iPad that stays charged up, and I have good wireless connection through Verizon, so I can do this with you today.
Oh,
but I've been without power since Sunday night.
I'm sorry. A lot of people going through a tough time. Hope that gets up, though. We heard it may be a week for some or more. Well, Clint, let's get right to this. I want to hit some of the newest things that have happened with regard to some of the lawsuits that we expect to be filed. We'll get into more of that in a moment. But, well, first, let's clarify. You do represent some individuals from that Gallatin facility, correct? And no lawsuit filed yet, but you've written those letters of notice?
Correct. We represent 13 residents and the families of those residents, and we represent 7 employees of the facility, all of whom were infected with COVID-19. We've sent pre-suit notice for one of the families. That's the Bolton case. And as your viewers know, we have to wait 60 days before we can file the complaint, because by law there's a 60-day waiting period that we have to abide by. Then once that period's passed, we can then file the lawsuit. And we expect the rest of the pre-suit notices for the balance of our clients will be submitted probably by the end of this week. And then we will try to file all the lawsuits as a group.
All right, Clint, and let's clarify this when it comes to malpractice cases, as you always do whenever you come on the show. Standard of care is the issue here. I mean, there can, would you agree, be instances, be it at an assisted living facility, a hospital, or someplace else, where everyone perhaps does everything they're expected to do correctly, and yet somehow, some way, someone still gets infected. And if that's the case, then you say, hey, they did what they can and it still happened. The key for when you feel you have a case is if there's been some form of negligence or they didn't live up to standard of care?
Sure. Nick, we've retained an infectious disease specialist who's going to help us with the Gallatin nursing home cases. And this is what he's telling us. You have to look at the COVID-19 as like a burglar who tries to get into the house. And there are a lot of different ways you can get into the house, but if you keep the doors locked and the windows shut, more often than not, the burglar will not get into the house. And if you look at the nursing home conduct in this case, they left the doors open, they left the windows open, and they basically sat around and waited for the burglar to come into the house. That's the bottom line here. That's why we took these cases, because their reckless indifference to protecting their own residents is what led to the massive outbreak. And I don't know, did you see the numbers, Nick, that the state reported that, of course, they've stopped doing this now, but a couple of weeks ago, they had 165 confirmed cases at that nursing home. Did you see that?
Yep. I mean, yeah, the numbers are fairly stunning. Scary is what they are.
It was 5 times 5 times more than the next nursing home. So you have to look at the situation, ask yourself, it's one thing if you have a few infections like a campfire, but at this institution where there's a forest fire of cases, then it tells you, and this is what we're being told by an infectious disease specialist, there was likely more than one source for the infection. In addition to the failure to prevent the infection, there was a failure to mitigate inside the premises. Because once you get someone infected, you can isolate them, segregate them, and try to prevent further infection and exposures. That wasn't done here in this case. They blew it on the mitigation, and that's why this outbreak became massive.
Interesting.